Before we start, kindly subscribe to my channel and tell me, where in the universe are you watching from? The Kethral battlefield stretched far across the rocky plains, shimmering under the twin suns. Towering banners, marked with the golden sigil of the warlike alien race, swayed in the dusty wind. Hundreds of Kethral warriors stood in rigid formations, their armored bodies gleaming. The air hummed with the weight of tradition. Today was a day of honor. Among them stood Zarya Vok, daughter of the High Warlord, a proud warrior with sharp violet eyes and deep blue skin. Her long silver hair was braided in warrior fashion, and her tall frame carried the strength of her ancestors. She was the finest marksman of her people, known for never missing a shot. That was, until he arrived. Callan Voss, a human sniper, stood at the edge of the Kethral gathering. He was lean but strong, his brown hair slightly tousled from the wind. His Terran combat gear looked out of place among the Kethral's heavy armor. Unlike them, he carried no massive plasma rifle, no ceremonial blade, just a sleek sniper rifle slung across his back. Zarya barely gave him a glance. Humans were interesting, but they were not warriors. They relied too much on tricks, machines, and cowardly tactics. This was a test of honor, not some battlefield stunt. The challenge was simple. A tiny metal drone, barely the size of a clenched fist, would be launched high into the sky. The shooter had to destroy it before it vanished beyond the clouds. No easy feat, even for Kethral elites. Zarya had gone first. She lifted her massive plasma rifle, aimed with precision, and fired. A clean shot. The drone exploded midair, and the warriors around her roared with approval. Then Callan stepped forward. Zarya crossed her arms. Let's see how your human tricks help you now. The drone launched again, soaring higher than before. Callan didn't rush. He adjusted the scope of his rifle, exhaled slowly, and fired only once. Zarya squinted. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, ping! A tiny spark flickered against the sunlight. The drone had been hit, clean through its core. The gathered warriors fell silent. Zarya's eyes widened. Impossible. The drone had been too far, moving too fast. No Kethral warrior could have made that shot, and yet this human had done it without hesitation. Then came the worst part. Callan lowered his rifle, turned to Zarya, and grinned. Ha! Thought that it'd be harder. Zarya's breath caught in her throat. Did this human just mock her? The crowd suddenly erupted into shouts and chaos. Some warriors were in awe, others in denial. How could a human outmatch a Kethral elite? Zarya's fists clenched. Unacceptable. This wasn't just an insult. It was a challenge to her honor. And Zarya Vok never backed down from a challenge. The Kethral warriors still murmured among themselves, their voices heavy with disbelief. The idea that a human had outshot one of their finest was unthinkable. Zarya Vok's pride burned like fire in her chest. She stepped forward, her violet eyes locked onto Callan Voss, the Terran sniper who had just humiliated her in front of her people. You cheated, Zarya said, her voice cold. Callan raised an eyebrow, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. Cheated? You saw the shot. Clean and fair. Zarya's jaw tightened. He wasn't even taking this seriously. That lazy smirk on his face made her want to wipe it off with a fist. Her father, High Warlord Vok, stepped forward, his towering form casting a long shadow. His deep voice rumbled across the gathering. The shot was made. It cannot be undone. But skill alone is not what makes a warrior. The crowd nodded in agreement. The Kethral valued honor and battle, not just clever tricks. A single shot, no matter how impressive, was not enough to earn their respect. Zarya seized the moment. She turned back to Callan, her silver hair whipping in the wind. If you are truly a warrior, she said, voice sharp, then you will accept my challenge. Callan's grin faded slightly. A challenge, huh? And what happens if I say no? A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Refusing a direct challenge from a Kethral elite was an insult of the highest order. Zarya's gaze didn't waver. Then you are a coward, and your victory is meaningless. Callan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. He had dealt with high-stakes missions, enemy snipers, and deadly ambushes, But this, he had no idea what kind of challenge he was walking into. Still, he wasn't about to back down. "All right," he said, crossing his arms. "What are the rules?" Zaraya smirked. "The trial of the skies." The moment she spoke, the warriors around them reacted. Some cheered, others looked at Callan like he was already dead. Callan blinked. "That sounds fun." A warrior beside him chuckled darkly. "You won't be saying that after the first fall." Zaraya ignored the chatter. She pointed toward a massive hovering battlefield in the distance. Platforms floated high in the air, shifting positions randomly. Warriors leaped between them, taking shots at moving targets while avoiding deadly drops. "This is our true test of marksmanship," Zaraya said. "Shooting a tiny target from the ground is one thing, but can you do it while moving, dodging attacks, and fighting for survival?" Callan let out a slow whistle. "So basically, a moving obstacle course with guns." Zaraya's expression remained serious. "It is a battle of skill, endurance, and courage." Callan shrugged. "All right, sure. Sounds like a challenge." Zaraya narrowed her eyes. "If you fail, you forfeit your claim to warrior status among my people. If you win," she hesitated for a split second before adding, "you will have earned my respect." Callan smirked. "Oh well, in that case." Zaraya raised a hand, silencing him. "But if you truly wish to prove yourself, we must raise the stakes." A murmur spread through the crowd. The Kethral knew what was coming. Zaraya took a slow step forward, eyes locked onto his. Then, with a steady voice, she said, "If you win, you will be bound to my house." Callan tilted his head. What exactly does that mean?" The warrior next to him let out a rough laugh. "It means if you win, human, you are as good as engaged." Silence fell. Callan blinked, then blinked again. "Wait, what?" Zaraya crossed her arms, still interested. Callan's mind raced. He had just accepted a deadly aerial shooting challenge, and now there was a marriage proposal hidden somewhere in the fine print. He took a slow breath and muttered to himself, "This is why I don't do diplomacy." Callan Voss stood at the edge of the floating battlefield, staring at the massive structure before him. Platforms of metal and stone hovered in the air, shifting unpredictably. Some spun, some tilted, and others disappeared without warning. Warriors leaped between them, firing shots at moving targets while dodging attacks. High above, the twin suns cast an orange glow over the battlefield, making everything look even more dangerous. Callan let out a slow breath. "All right, no problem. Just an aerial death maze with snipers. Totally normal Tuesday." Beside him, Zaraya Vok adjusted the strap on her plasma rifle. She was fully focused, her sharp violet eyes scanning the battlefield. She had trained for this her whole life. This was where true warriors proved themselves. She glanced at Callan. "If you hesitate, you fall. If you miss your shot, you fail. If you die, well, then you are simply not worthy." Callan gave a lopsided grin. "Wow, such encouragement. I'm truly touched." Zaraya scoffed, but he noticed the small twitch at the corner of her lips. The gathered warriors watched with excitement as the announcer's deep voice boomed through the arena. "Warriors, the trial of the skies begins. First to land 5 shots on their targets wins." A loud horn blast echoed through the air. The battlefield shifted. Platforms started moving faster, the air filled with energy blasts, and the game was on. Callan versus gravity. Callan jumped onto the first platform, his boots skidding slightly as it tilted beneath him. He quickly caught his balance, eyes locking onto the first moving target. Zaraya was already ahead, leaping across the platforms with graceful precision. She raised her rifle and fired a perfect shot, hitting a hovering drone midair. 1 point for her. Callan gritted his teeth. "All right, my turn." He spotted a drone zigzagging between platforms. Lining up his shot, he fired, but the platform beneath him suddenly dropped. His bullet missed. The warriors watching laughed. Zaraya smirked. "Too slow, human." Callan cursed under his breath, jumping to another platform just before his own vanished. This wasn't just about aiming. It was about timing, movement, and adapting fast. "I can work with that." He took a deep breath, eyes scanning the battlefield. He waited, counting the platform shifts. He had 1 second to fire before losing balance. Now, he squeezed the trigger. Bang! The bullet ricocheted off a metal beam, changed direction, and hit the drone dead center. The crowd gasped. Zarya's eyes widened slightly. Callan grinned. 1-to-1. Princess. Zarya rolled her eyes, but he saw the hint of respect in her gaze. The final shot. The battle escalated. Both warriors leaped from platform to platform, firing precise shots, dodging blasts, and outmaneuvering each other. Callan's human adaptability clashed with Zarya's battle-hardened discipline. Every time one of them landed a shot, the other caught up. 4-to-4. One more shot. Winner takes all. Callan landed on a high platform, catching his breath. Across from him, Zarya stood on a narrow beam, her silver hair flowing in the wind. She looked unshaken. Then, the final drone appeared. It moved fast, weaving unpredictably, too difficult for an easy shot. Zarya aimed, steadying her breath. Callan, however, saw something different. The drone's path was leading right between 2 moving platforms. A bullet could bounce off one, hit the other, and strike the target. A risky shot. A stupid shot. A perfect shot. He grinned. Time to break some physics. He fired. The bullet pinged off the first platform, bounced off the second, curved through the air, and hit the drone dead center. Silence. Then, the entire arena erupted into cheers. Zarya stared in disbelief. He had just done the impossible, again. Callan turned to her, breathless but grinning. So, does this mean I'm engaged now? Zarya sighed, rubbing her temple. You are unbearable. But even as she said it, she couldn't stop the small, amused smile from forming. The cheers of the Kethral warriors echoed through the floating battlefield. Callan Voss stood on his platform, grinning like an idiot. He had won. The impossible shot, the ricochet off moving platforms. It had all worked. His gamble had paid off, and now the proud alien warrior standing across from him owed him something big. Zarya Vok took a deep breath, her sharp violet eyes locked onto Callan. The wind ruffled her silver hair, but her expression remained unreadable. Then she stepped forward. The gathered warriors fell into silence. Everyone knew what came next. Zarya's voice was steady, but there was an edge of frustration. By Kethral tradition, you have proven your skill. You are now, she exhaled, as if the words pained her, bound to my house. Callan's grin faltered. Wait, that was real. A warrior behind him clapped him on the back, laughing loudly. Congratulations, human. You are now part of her clan. Soon you will take the blood oath. Callan blinked. The what now? Zarya's jaw tightened. The formal union between warriors, a sacred bond. You should have known what you were accepting. Callan ran a hand through his hair. Yeah, see, I was kinda focused on not dying at the time, so the whole marriage contract part slipped past me. The warriors laughed again, amused by the human's confusion. Zarya, however, was not amused. She marched straight up to him, standing a little too close, her violet eyes burning. This is no joke, Callan Voss. You challenged me, you won, and now you must accept the consequences. Callan held up his hands. Look, I don't mind being bound to your house if that just means free meals and a nice couch to crash on. But if we're talking about an actual marriage, he rubbed his neck, looking around. Is there, like, a no thank you button for this? A nearby warrior gasped. You would insult the warlord's daughter. Another warrior growled. To refuse after winning is dishonor. Callan sighed. Okay, so that's a no on the no thank you button. Zarya crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. Do not worry, human. I will not force a weak mate upon my house. That stung more than Callan expected. Weak? I just won. Zarya lifted her chin. A single victory does not make a warrior. If you wish to reject the bond, you must prove yourself in another way. Callan frowned. Let me guess. Another trial? Zarya nodded. Yes, the right of endurance. Callan let out a long sigh. You guys really don't believe in simple paperwork, huh? Zarya ignored him. You must survive a full day on the frozen peaks of Varkos, alone without weapons or technology. Callan stared. You want me to freeze to death? Zarya smirked. A true warrior will endure. The warriors cheered again. Callan rubbed his temples. Why do alien cultures always make things so complicated? He glanced at Zarya, who stood tall, watching him with a challenge in her gaze. He sighed. Fine, I'll do it. But after this, we're having a serious talk about informed consent in your traditions. Zarya's smirk grew. Good. Try not to die, human. Callan grumbled. Yeah, no pressure. As the warriors led him toward his next trial, he muttered under his breath, why didn't I just miss that stupid shot? The howling winds cut through Callan's jacket like icy blades. He stomped through the knee-deep snow, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. Jagged mountains loomed around him, their peaks covered in mist, the frozen peaks of Varkos. No weapons, no technology, no backup. Just Callan, and the lovely risk of freezing to death. Great, he muttered, rubbing his arms. All because I won a shooting contest. Next time, I'm missing on purpose. Behind him, the warriors watched from a hovering ship, completely warm and comfortable. Among them, Zarya stood with her arms crossed, her silver hair whipping in the wind. She watched Callan struggle with a neutral expression, but deep inside, she was curious. Would he survive, or had she overestimated him? Survival, or something like it. Callan's first priority was finding shelter. He spotted a rocky outcrop near the base of a cliff and stumbled toward it. His fingers were already going numb, and he had zero idea how long he had before hypothermia kicked in. He crouched under the rock, shielding himself from the wind. Step 1, not die immediately. Check. Step 2, fire. He gathered dry branches and brushed the snow off them. He had no lighter, no tech, and definitely no survival training. What he did have was a sniper's brain. He grabbed 2 sharp rocks and struck them together. Sparks flew. It took 30 miserable minutes, but finally, a small flame flickered to life. Callan let out a shaky breath and held his hands close. All right, that's a win. The hunter becomes the hunted. As warmth returned to his body, his stomach growled. Callan groaned. Right, food. Can't live on personality alone. He stepped out of his shelter, scanning the frozen terrain. Snow stretched for miles, broken only by sharp rocks and twisted trees. Then, movement. A shadow shifted near the cliffs. Callan narrowed his eyes. Something big was watching him. Slowly, he reached for a branch, gripping it like a club. Then it pounced. A Varkos ice beast. A 4-legged predator covered in thick white fur, its eyes glowing blue. Its razor-sharp fangs gleamed in the dim light. Of course, Callan sighed, because freezing to death wasn't enough, huh? The beast lunged. Callan rolled aside, barely dodging its claws. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. No weapons, no backup, no time to think. Just instincts. When the beast leaped again, Callan dove sideways and swung his branch like a baseball bat. It smacked the creature's snout, stunning it for a second. Callan didn't waste time. He grabbed a sharp rock and drove it into the ice, creating a slick patch beneath him. He turned back, grinning. All right, ugly. Let's dance. The beast growled and charged, but the moment its paws hit the ice, it slipped. It skidded forward, yelping as it crashed into a boulder. Callan didn't hesitate. He grabbed another rock and smashed it against the beast's head, knocking it out cold. Breathing hard, he stared at the unconscious predator. I can't believe that worked. Zarya's surprise. From the hovering ship, Zarya had been watching the entire fight. Her warriors had expected Callan to fail. But now they stood in stunned silence. Zarya herself felt something unexpected. Respect. This human had no weapons, no training, and yet he had just taken down a Varkos ice beast with his bare hands. Her fingers tightened around the railing. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as weak as she thought. The long night. Callan dragged the beast's body back to his shelter, using its thick fur to block the wind. He carved some meat, cooked it over his tiny fire, and ate in victory. He leaned back, staring up at the alien sky, the stars brilliant above him. Despite everything, he grinned. Not dead yet. But he had no idea that high above, Zaraya was watching, her expression unreadable. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted him to fail. The first light of dawn broke over the frozen peaks of Arcos. Callan stretched his stiff limbs, wincing as his muscles protested. He had survived the worst night of his life, freezing winds, hunger, and a very aggressive ice beast. But he was still standing. He kicked snow over the dying embers of his fire and glanced up at the hovering ship in the sky. Time to go home. Well, if he could call it that. The return of the victorious human. The ship's ramp lowered, revealing a crowd of Kethral warriors waiting for him. Their expressions ranged from amusement to grudging respect. And standing at the front, Zaraya. Her violet eyes studied him as he approached, his clothes torn, his face marked with exhaustion, but his grin firmly in place. Callan gave a lazy salute. Morning. Miss me. A nearby warrior chuckled. The human survives. Maybe he's not so soft after all. Another scoffed. He looks half dead. Callan held up a chunk of frozen beast meat. Yeah, well, I had breakfast. What about you guys? The warriors laughed. Even the ones who had doubted him looked impressed. Zaraya, however, remained silent. She stepped forward, her silver hair catching the cold breeze. You endured the night, she said, her voice neutral. Callan arched an eyebrow. That was the deal, wasn't it? She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, you have proven yourself. Callan smirked. So does that mean I get to keep my single status? Zaraya's eyes narrowed slightly. The test was for honor, not avoidance of duty. Callan blinked. Wait, so I still... A warrior clapped him on the back, nearly knocking the air from his lungs. Welcome to the clan, Callan Voss. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and stomping their feet in celebration. Callan groaned. Oh, come on. A deal he didn't see coming. Later, Callan found himself inside the Kethral warship, sitting across from Zaraya in a dimly lit chamber. A ceremonial fire burned in the center, casting shadows across her sharp features. He leaned back, arms crossed. All right, warrior princess. We need to talk. Zaraya frowned. About? Callan gestured around. This whole welcome to the clan thing. I mean, I get it. I survived, so now I'm apparently worthy of you. But shouldn't I get a say? Zaraya's gaze didn't waver. The challenge was to prove whether you were weak or strong. The outcome was clear. Callan sighed. Okay, but do you even want this? Zaraya hesitated. The truth was, she wasn't sure. She had expected him to fail, expected him to beg for mercy. Instead, he had fought, endured, and laughed in the face of danger. He was different. Zaraya leaned forward. You won your place, but if you seek another path, then you must offer something in return. Callan raised an eyebrow. A trade? Zaraya nodded. A warrior's bond is not easily broken, but if you can bring my father something of equal value, you may earn your freedom. Callan grinned. Now we're talking. What does your dad want? Gold? A nice fruit basket? Zaraya smirked. He wants an alliance with your people. Callan's grin faded. Oh, a new mission. Zaraya stood. The Kethral respect strength. You have proven yours. Now you must prove the worth of your species. Callan ran a hand through his hair. So let me get this straight. If I want out of this warrior marriage contract, I need to convince my people to form an alliance with yours. Zaraya nodded. That is the path before you. Callan chuckled, shaking his head. Great, no pressure. Zaraya tilted her head. Are you afraid, human? He met her gaze, a smirk playing on his lips. Not even a little. But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger. And somehow, he had a feeling Zaraya wasn't done surprising him yet. Callan stood in the warship's grand hall, facing a towering figure who looked like he could crush boulders for fun. High Warlord Valor, Zaraya's father. Callan had met a lot of scary people in his life, military officers, bounty hunters, a guy named Rico who cheated at poker, but none of them compared to this. Vaylor's black armor gleamed under the flickering blue torches. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, and his scared face held the expression of a man who solved problems with violence first, questions never. "You," Vaylor rumbled, his deep voice shaking the floor, "are the human my daughter has chosen." Callan glanced at Zaraya, who stood beside her father, arms crossed. "Not helping, Princess." Callan cleared his throat. Well, chosen is a strong word, more like accidentally recruited." A few warriors chuckled. Vaylor did not. He stepped closer, staring Callan down. "I have heard of your survival, your fight, your cunning." Callan lifted his chin. "Yeah, what do you think?" Vaylor's gaze narrowed. "I am unconvinced." Callan's stomach sank. "Oh, great. The deal gets worse." Vaylor crossed his arms. "If you wish to be free of this bond, you must earn it." Callan sighed. "Right, the alliance thing." "Not just an alliance," Vaylor said. "A display of loyalty." Callan hesitated. "Define display?" Vaylor's eyes gleamed. "You will accompany Zaraya on a mission to the outer sectors," he said. "A hostile territory where our enemies, the Skreth Dominion, are preparing for war." Callan raised an eyebrow. "You want me to spy on a bunch of lizard warriors and not die in the process?" Vaylor nodded. "If you survive, we will speak of alliances, and perhaps freedom." Callan exhaled. "No offense, but I feel like my options here range from terrible to extra terrible." Zaraya smirked. "Then prove you are as clever as you claim." Callan groaned. "You enjoy this, don't you?" She tilted her head. "More than I expected." The mission begins. Hours later, Callan stood in the hangar bay, gearing up for the mission. He checked his sniper rifle, making sure the scope was aligned. If he was going into enemy space, he wasn't going unarmed. Zaraya entered, wearing her sleek battle armor, her silver hair braided back. She studied him. "You are nervous." Callan adjusted his gloves. "Not nervous, just recalculating my life choices." Zaraya smirked. "Too late for that." He sighed. Yeah, so what's the plan?" Zaraya activated a holographic map showing a dark, jagged asteroid belt. "The Skreth Dominion is testing new weapons in this sector. We will infiltrate their outpost, gather intelligence, and leave unnoticed." Callan raised a hand. "Define unnoticed." Zaraya's violet eyes gleamed. "Without dying." Callan nodded. "Cool, just checking." Arrival in enemy territory. Their ship slipped into the asteroid belt, dodging chunks of floating rock. Callan stared out the window. "You know where I come from. This is called a really bad idea." Zaraya smiled. "Then let's see if your bad idea gets us killed." The ship approached the Skreth base, a dark metal fortress carved into an asteroid. Zaraya grabbed her weapons. "We move quickly. Stay silent." Callan sighed. "I love how you assume I'm the loud one." Zaraya raised an eyebrow. "Are you not?" Callan opened his mouth, then shut it. "Okay, fair point." The infiltration. They landed unseen, sneaking through the dimly lit corridors. Callan moved smoothly, keeping low, his sniper trained ahead. Zaraya was impressed. He wasn't just fast. He was smart, moving with the instincts of a seasoned soldier. They reached a security terminal. Zaraya began downloading data. Callan kept watch. Everything was going smoothly. Then, footsteps. A squad of Skreth guards turned the corner. Zaraya stiffened. "They will see us." Callan grinned. "Not if they don't know where to look." He grabbed a small detonator from his belt and tossed it down the opposite hallway. Boom! The explosion shook the base. The guards immediately rushed toward the noise. Zaraya stared. "You are reckless." Callan smirked. "I prefer efficient." Trouble is coming. They finished downloading the data and slipped back toward the ship. As they boarded, Zaraya studied Callan closely. This human was unlike any warrior she had met. Cunning, fast, infuriating, and yet she found herself intrigued. Callan caught her staring. What? Zaraya smirked. You continue to surprise me, Callan Voss. He grinned. Stick with me, princess. The fun's just getting started. The stolen Screth data sat on the ship's console, its encrypted files pulsing with secrets. Callan leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Well, that wasn't so bad. Zaraya, still suited in her sleek battle armor, turned to him with an arched brow. We were nearly caught. Callan grinned. Yeah, but we weren't. That's what makes it fun. Zaraya shook her head. This human. She had fought alongside countless warriors, but Callan was different, reckless yet clever, foolish yet brilliant, annoying yet strangely captivating. And now, as their ship flew through the asteroid belt, trouble was right behind them. Enemy on their tail. The radar blared. Callan snapped to attention. Why are there 3 red dots chasing us? Zaraya checked the screen. Screth warships. They must have detected us. Callan groaned, and here I was, hoping to end the day with a nice meal and a nap. The enemy ships closed in, their cannons charging. Zaraya took the controls, eyes sharp. Hold on. Callan grabbed the seat as she jerked the ship sideways, weaving between asteroids. The Screth fired, narrowly missing them. Callan glanced at his sniper rifle. All right, I got an idea, but you're not gonna like it. Zaraya smirked. I rarely do. The impossible shot. Callan hurried to the side hatch, where the ship's hull had a small observation platform. He secured his sniper rifle and took aim. Zaraya's voice crackled through his earpiece. This is madness. Callan smirked. Nah, just a really good shot. The ship rocked as Zaraya dodged enemy fire. Callan adjusted his aim, locking onto the lead Screth warship's engine port. He exhaled. 3, 2, 1. Bang! The bullet flew through space, cutting through the chows, and slammed directly into the enemy ship's power core. For a second, nothing happened. Then, boom! The warship erupted in flames, spiraling into an asteroid. Zaraya's eyes widened as the second ship was caught in the explosion. The third Screth warship immediately retreated. Callan grinned, shouldering his rifle. That's game. Zaraya was speechless. She had seen impossible shots before, but this was legendary, a warrior's respect. Back on the Kethral warship, Callan stepped onto the landing bay, stretching his arms. Well, that was fun, he said. Let's never do it again. Zaraya stood beside him, her violet eyes still studying him. Callan noticed. What? Something on my face. Zaraya tilted her head. You are unlike any warrior I have met. Callan smirked. I get that a lot. She took a step closer. You have proven your skill, your worth. My father will honor his word. Callan hesitated. So, I'm free. Zaraya nodded. Yes, but the alliance remains uncertain. Callan sighed. Of course. He had survived frozen wastelands, outsmarted alien warriors, and made an impossible shot in deep space, and somehow he still had work to do. A choice he didn't expect. As Callan prepared to leave, Vaylor met him in the war hall. The warlord studied him. You are strong, human. Perhaps our people have underestimated yours. Callan crossed his arms. Glad you're finally catching up. Vaylor nodded. Stay. Fight with us. Earn true honor. Callan hesitated. The smart move was to return home, take the data, and secure the alliance from a distance. But something held him back. He glanced at Zaraya. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Something had changed between them. The battle, the mission, that look she gave him. For the first time, Callan wasn't sure where he belonged. He turned to Vaylor and grinned. Well, I do like a challenge. Zaraya smirked. Then prepare yourself, human. The real fight is only beginning.